Hey guys, welcome back.
Hey guys, brand new podcast.
Hey, wait a minute. It's my podcast.
Oh, sorry, I forgot.
Enjoy. I am happy to talk about this book, and I'm nervous to talk about it.
Are you?
Yeah. I am nervous to talk about it. I feel like what you said when we were talking off mic the other day. I feel sometimes like we're talking about Ms Pat's autobiography. I should explain, I guess. It's called Rabbit, the Autobiography of Ms Pat. Anybody who doesn't know Ms Pat, she is African American. She grew up in Atlanta. She doesn't really give any kind of year dates, but I know she's somewhere around my age. So in the 70s, 80s, she grew up in Atlanta. And sometimes, like you said the other day, Kirsten, I don't know that I have a right to have any kind of opinion on her life or what it's like because I'm white. And as you're born a white person, you have so many privileges that other ethnicities don't have. And for me a lot of her book made me really angry. And so I don't want anybody to think that or any of the three of us think that we have any kind of privileged point of view or anything like that in anything I say in this whole episode. Obviously, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about because I didn't grow up black and poor in Atlanta in the 70s, but I can only talk about my experience of this book. So I don't want anybody to think, anything bad from anything I say about, not that I plan on saying anything radical, but I don't know, it just made me nervous. The atmosphere of today's world is such that people tend to react very strongly to anything you say without thinking about what the context is or the meaning or the purpose or the benefit of the doubt of the person that's saying it. So anyway.
Well, I'm nervous to talk about it because I couldn't get through a chapter without crying. Yeah. So I just said to my kids, I was like, if I'm crying in there, it's not a big deal. It's about the book.
All right.
It's okay. Don't come in.
I know all our kids are in the pool while we're podcasting. So if someone comes in and interrupts us while we're sobbing, they've been prepared, right?
Yeah. I was telling Kathy, I think it sent them the wrong message that they were like, crying over a book? Okay. Just another excuse not to read.
I hope not. Right? I hope not. Book's always better than a movie.
Yeah.
I can't think of a single movie that was better than the book. Anyway, where do we start with this book?
We should start by saying this should be a movie. I mean,
that's so funny.
It has to be at some point.
It was so, I could picture the entire thing. It's so, first of all, what a story.
Yeah.
Like, what characters, what a huge arc. Like, the redemption,
Before we start, the funny thing I thought about is this is the fastest we've ever turned around a book club book ever.
Right.
Ever.
You were like,
ever.
Literally a week ago, we should read this book. And we're like, done. And generally it's like 7 weeks. We're like, okay, just book the damn podcast. I'll finish the book.
It's Saturday and Kathy
this
read it in a day.
Literally a day.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
I read it in 2 days. Yeah.
I would have read it in a day if not for the fact that I kept putting it
responsible.
down because I was crying. Because I'd read and just go, oh my God, I can't, and just to process it.
Yeah.
And it's like some of the stuff that she goes through at the ages that she goes through, it is like the ages of our kids right now. And to think of what she was dealing with and the responsibility and the hardships that she was going through, it was really hard not to take it very personally and to just imagine our daughters. We all have daughters the same ages and wow.
The magnitude of what she was experiencing is so unbelievably foreign to what our girls are experiencing that it was incredibly jarring.
Yeah.
Did it make you go, are you seriously complaining that you're not getting a second Coca-Cola? That's what you're complaining about. Did it give you any of that? Because it did me. I kept looking at my kids going, no, not like that. But we were on our vacation in Bali when I was reading this book. And I kept going, you have no idea how lucky you are. You have no idea. And I don't want you to learn through any path that Ms Pat has taken how lucky you are. But I would like for you to, if I could download her book without downloading You know, they're too young to read this book.
Yeah.
But if I could download that kind of awareness of, wow, people have it so much worse.
You just want to like give them a computer chip of gratitude to like just, you know, plug it in, like give them a shot going, oh, wow, look at what a lucky, happy, grateful life we have. We have parents who love us, like just at the bare minimum, and parents who can afford to feed us.
And who are together.
Pay attention.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, holy shit.
Like every possible deficit you could imagine, I think she experienced.
Yeah.
Every deficit. Food insecurity, sexual predatorness happening multiple times, alcoholic parent.
Uncaring teacher.
Uncaring teacher, yes.
A vast culture of poverty.
Yes.
Like it wasn't just her, but like
racism.
Racism.
Big time. Oh my God.
Violence.
Yeah.
It's literally like every negative thing you could possibly throw at a child.
Right. And I know Ms Pat doesn't want to be like the spokesperson for I got out of the ghetto. I know that's not, I'm not even sure that's why she wrote the book. I think she wrote it because it's a phenomenal, insane story. And hopefully it would inspire some people to take a different path in their life. And you know, when you said this should be a movie, when I finished the book, I emailed her manager and said, please tell me this is being developed into a movie. Please tell me this has to be a movie. And I won't tell you what he said in return because that's not my place to say. But I'll tell you off the mic. Off the mic. Because I don't feel like that's my place to say.
Right, fair enough.
But I was like, I could see, just like you could see every single person. What a horrible story, but a story that should have been told. I'm glad it was told.
Also, like, what rich characters, because I think that she does, and her co-author, Janine Amber, who I guess helped her write it. I think it is very well written.
I do too.
Because I think a testament to the fact, like, it's not just that the story is phenomenal, but I mean, it just...
It feels like fiction.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I don't know. I can't ever read an autobiography that quickly. It really did feel like fiction. There was a couple of points where I was like, this is real.
Yes.
Like I don't know.
Because it was well written. It really was. It was written in a way that you just locked right in and got sucked right into it. And
it wasn't a complicated book. She didn't complicate it with a lot of big words, fancy words. You know, that's not Ms Pat's story anyway.
Or even to try to justify any of it.
Like
it was really just so real and genuine.
It was warts and all. And she did not hide her complicity in things. Like she really went for it and just told it all. I'm so impressed.
I was so blown away too. I was blown away by Ms Pat as a human being. I've known Ms Pat for a while. I'm not close to her by any means, but she's been here a few times. I sat in on a podcast with her and Bert, and she and I have talked about growing up in Atlanta and stuff, and I really like Ms Pat very much before I read this book. I like her. Now I look at her, which she probably wouldn't want me to, but I do look at her a little differently because I go, I mean, the monumental effort it took to become Ms Pat from the childhood she experienced is almost indescribable, right? How she had to change the way she processed the world, you know? For those who haven't read the book, I guess we should explain a little bit what the book is about, maybe, not to ruin it for anybody.
I know it's hard to do it without being like, spoiler alert. So I think, you know, you should say anybody who's going to read this, spoiler alert, we may be talking about things that you're going to find out halfway through or 3/4 of the way through, because we're probably going to talk about it all. But I don't think it'll spoil the book. Like just knowing the facts does not spoil the journey, really.
Well, half the people have already probably watched her on Rogan and on Ari Shafir's podcast, which is how she kind of first came to light. And I think she's kind of told the story. I purposefully didn't listen to the Rogan interview before our book club.
Yeah, likewise. I just wanted to talk about the book, not anything else that came up.
Me too. So I'll listen to Rogan after, and then Ms Pat's going to come on here on Wife of the Party, which I'm super excited about. She was supposed to be on when I was in Bali. She asked if she could come on, and I was in Bali, so I couldn't do it. I was really bummed too. But so anyway, let's talk about this book. How do we start? Where do we start?
Where do we start?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question.
I have questions for her.
That's funny. I do too.
You do?
I do.
So maybe you should come on the podcast too. Maybe we should all podcast with her and go, we have questions. We have notes. I have notes. I wonder if she ever saw her granddaddy again. You know, her granddaddy went to jail.
There are several people in the book that I was like, I wonder what happened to that character. I
Me
wonder what
too.
happened to that person who was so instrumental at this one particular point in her life. Like, where is that person now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And does she have contact with them?
Yeah. And her grandfather, that's a really good example of how rounded the characters were and also how well written the book was, because on the surface, her grandfather is running an illegal
bar, really.
Moonshine. Yeah, like
moonshine bar. Yeah.
A moonshine bar out of his house where little kids are living. And like, you know, a lot of these men and women are extremely disreputable characters and predators, etc. So on the surface, as an adult, as a parent, when I hear that, I think that's fucking sick. What is wrong with that man having children in his, you know, living in this moonshine business? But he was such a wonderful character and I loved him so much. He was so caring to her.
He was.
He really took care of her and he really saw her as a person. And
he was her port in the storm.
Yeah. And he was just doing, and I really got the sense he was doing the best he could with the tools that he had.
Right.
And he really had a successful business. It was a successful moonshine business, but
it was a bar in his living room.
It was a successful business.
Bar. Yeah.
And he was supporting himself and his kids and his grandkids through this business. And I think it's a real testament to how the book was written and also the person that she is, that to paint a picture of some of these people that on paper might be not, you know, not a good character.
Right.
But I just loved him. And I was the same as you, wondering all through the book, when's her grandfather going to appear? When's he going to? Yeah.
She never said what happened to him. I don't know if he died in jail. I don't know if he got out. I have no idea. So I have to ask her that.
Yeah.
But I think you bring up a really good point that we could use in life in general, which is on paper.
Oh my God.
Yes.
We all make assumptions about people based on our unconscious bias. Yeah. Right? And on paper, that guy was pretty bad, but he wasn't bad.
Yeah.
He was good to her. He was really good. And where I thought of that, actually, I didn't think of it in those terms, but I thought, I wonder how many times I've looked at something from the outside, not understanding the inside, and made a judgment about it. Because you could definitely look at all of her life and have a huge judgment on it, especially when you think about the African American culture in America. I grew up in the South where I heard a lot of talk about, you know, Black people living on the system. And these people live on the system. Rabbit lived on the system.
But reading this book, you're like, how the fuck would she have survived?
Yeah, exactly.
Without the system and without all the illegal stuff
That's
that went
my
on.
point.
The system didn't even help all that much.
No,
quite
it
frankly.
wasn't helping her.
It wasn't enough.
That's right.
And it didn't protect her.
That's right.
So it didn't help her mom. It didn't help her. It didn't help it. I mean,
the help was minimal.
Yeah.
There was help, but it wasn't what a white person in the 70s in rural Georgia thought was happening. I think what I was taught was happening was not what was happening, right? Yeah. I was taught they're just laying around, you know, being lazy people, smoking, drinking, drawing off the government. I'm paying her rent. I'm paying her food and stuff, which is true, but only just a little bit, because then if you look inside, if you pull the curtain back, you go, wow, this is disastrous.
Yeah.
I mean, this is
and you could
horrible.
say that about her mother, because her mother was someone who was watching soaps.
Yes.
Plugging the TV into the neighbors.
Stealing electricity.
Stealing electricity when
churches.
She had no electricity or hot water for her children. And was living off the system. But that living off the system provided for her kids. And also even just looking at her mother, like the horrible life that her mother led to get her to the place of being this alcoholic mother was really depressing. I mean, the mother says to her, white people are better than us.
Don't look them in the eye.
Don't look them in the eye. They are better than us.
Oh,
I mean, that like...
It took me aback too. Like when I read it, I went, oh.
Right.
I mean, I didn't know that happened in their culture.
Absolutely.
That conversation, post civil rights movement. I think pre-civil rights movement, a survival tactic would be don't look a white person in the eye, you're going to get hung, before the civil rights.
That's different than saying don't look them in the eye because they're better than
exactly.
you. Like, survival's one thing. Like you got to do what you got to do, but that is.
Yeah. And talk about white privilege here. We're three white ladies talking about this, and this is shocking to us. And I'm sure there are people listening to this going, where the fuck have you been? Wake up, people. This is the epitome of white privilege that we didn't have parents telling us, don't look a black person in the eye. They are better than us, or don't,
or they're worse than you. I didn't have that. Yeah. That conversation never came either for me, is don't look a black person in the eye. They're worse than you.
Of course not. Yeah.
But that was implied culturally. Don't you think? That was implied in a lot of cultures, that you just don't associate with black people in a certain way. And that's because they're not as good as you are. So I don't believe that, by the way. I don't believe that at all. But then I look at my life today, and I don't have a whole lot of African-American friends. And, as a white person, I guess you could justify, well, culturally, we're different, and then that's okay. There's nothing wrong with a cultural difference between an African-American person and a white person. But at the same time, I don't know. I don't have an answer to why I don't have a lot of black friends. I don't know what that is. I feel like I see black people same as me. Like I don't go, oh, I'm not hanging out with that person. That doesn't happen in my brain. But if you look at all my pictures of all my vacations, I guess I do have the token Asian. So no, I'm kidding. I am friends with other ethnic backgrounds, but I don't have black people as friends. Do you guys?
Yes, but
like that hang out all the time and barbecue?
But not a ton. I don't have a huge circle the way that you guys do. You guys have your group. But the thing is, your group was formed based on people that you were associating with at school. And at our school was largely white.
Yes, it is.
Honestly, it's a high percentage of white people. So the people you are meeting were mostly white.
Yes.
So
yeah,
that's true. It is true.
I think that's how that happens for you. It's not because you don't want to have black friends.
No, it's not.
It is just what you are sort of exposed to. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
90% white.
And you're right. It is. That's true.
It's true. Actually, now that you say that, it's funny that we don't really have a lot of black friends, but more like associates, people that like we hang out with through other things, but they're all through Stephen's work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that's what the connection is. Like he knows them through business or whatever. It's not in the neighborhood.
It's not in the neighborhood, right.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because this neighborhood is very white.
It's very white. Yeah.
So whose fault is that? You start looking at institutionalized racism or unconscious bias. Whose fault is that? I moved here because the school was good. I didn't move here because it was white.
Yeah.
I moved here and when I moved here, the school was like 38% free lunch or something.
It was a lot different than it is now.
Yeah. So
this neighborhood was a lot different.
It was far more diverse, and it's become more white as the time's gone on. Yes.
I was panicking because the thing came out of the pool. Like it came out of the pool.
It's okay. Just pull it out of the pool. They had to interrupt, didn't they? I knew at some point. You know what it's called?
Interruption number one. That will be the first of many.
It's called mano y mano with Georgia and Isla. They are fighting for control of what's happening in the pool. Isla thinks Georgia should be in the pool. Georgia thinks she's already been in the pool today, and she should not have to be in the pool. And that's Georgia's power play. And they can just, they can talk to Ms Pat about that.
Yeah, exactly.
About sibling rivalry.
Exactly. And then that's one more thing that we can like chalk up to, wow, this was a different experience. She really had a different experience than our kids are having right now, fighting over the pool.
I actually thought the same thing. There was a point at which, I'm reading this and I don't know, somehow we got reminded of her age. Like she's only 16. And I'm like, my kid can't make fucking cup of noodles by himself. And she's like literally raising 5 children, like 2 of her own, plus these other, like she's 16 for God's sake.
No, I know.
Like,
and she made some questionable choices. And there was a moment where I was like, but she's doing that with these children in the house. And I'm like, she's fucking 16. Right. What would I have done?
Right.
Right. Like when you're reminded, you're like, oh my God, 16, you might have terrible judgment calls anyway.
But also
to be
terrible
that
judgment calls plus being that responsible and that desperate. Like I would have made stupid ass choices at 16 with living in a suburban upper middle class household with parents who, I dare say, if I had been pregnant at any of the ages that she was, would have fully supported me. We wouldn't have been thrilled about it, but I am pretty confident they would have supported me and the baby and done whatever it took. To be on your own at that age, and then taking on the responsibility of kids that weren't even hers. Right. In addition to 2 kids at 16, I'm just blown away by her strength of character. Mm-hmm. Even though she did it drug dealing, it's like, what was she supposed to do? Could she support 5 children
even,
off of working at Taco Bell? No. Of course she couldn't.
The idea that she even could, like that it didn't occur to her not to provide for these 5 children. Yeah. Like that says a lot about who she is as a human.
Absolutely. It does.
Like that is mind-blowing.
It is mind-blowing. And even if it's ill-begotten.
Yeah. It was terrible, but can you blame her?
What she's supposed to do. Like, I don't blame her, no.
Yeah, I don't blame her at all.
I don't know that it was such a terrible decision. You know what I mean? Like she did what she had to.
Yes.
She got diapers on those kids.
Which,
you know what I mean?
This is one of the things that made me really angry because I felt like she has no avenue out. Even when the social worker came and said, I have an avenue out for you. Bill Clinton has created this program where you can go to school and you can learn a trade. She was a convicted felon. Still no avenue out. Because then who's going to hire a convicted felon in the healthcare industry?
Yes.
Nobody.
Right.
I was so angry about that because she would have been so good as a healthcare worker. I mean, it's great in the end that it didn't work out because she's a wonderful comedian. But
for her path.
Right. But how many other people?
Exactly.
Yes.
Where I go, we have this, quote, plan, but the plan can't be executed. So it's useless. Right. It's a useless plan.
Right, because you're targeting the very people that do have convictions. Do you know what I mean? So you're like, give them all this training. They've done all this really hard work, and then they still can't get hired.
And you know what? Honestly, at a micro level, like Ms. Pat, I don't know her, but from what she accomplished by raising those kids by herself with nothing and no support, God, she would have been such a great healthcare worker. You know? And with her sense of humor on top of that, her natural sense of nurturing to take in all these kids that were not hers. Yeah. She would have been such a huge asset to the healthcare industry. Like, can you imagine going into your doctor's office and the healthcare aide who comes to take your blood pressure or whatever is Ms. Pat, cracking jokes and being naturally nurturing. I mean, she would it's a huge loss. So it's a fucked up system.
Exactly. I listened to this podcast and I can't remember which one it was. Sorry. But the guy on the podcast he was a senator and he did something wrong and it was a felony and he went to jail. And I can't remember. Sorry, I have no memory. It's been like 3 months since I listened to this, but it really stuck with me. In jail, he's a felon, and he's with all these other fellow felons, and he starts going, you're really smart. Oh, you're really smart. Wait a minute. Everybody in here pretty much is really, really smart. They're problem solvers. They're workaround finders. Mm-hmm. And he started asking his fellow inmates, what do you think you're good at? And they'd say, well, I'm good at hustling, or I'm good at collecting money from people who owe me money. Okay, well, where in the world of like legit work does that skill, is that a benefit? So when he got out of jail, he started a nonprofit that helps convicted felons figure out their strength and get a job in that arena. And I believe he quote, sponsors them for a job so that, if someone goes, I don't hire felons, he kind of says, well, his foundation kind of sponsors it, if I understand that correctly. But I understood correctly that he started looking and going, every one of these people were failed by the educational system because they go, oh, you have bad behavior, then you go get suspended. You are selling drugs, so you go to jail. Instead of saying, I mean, obviously if you're selling drugs, you're breaking the law. On some level, you should go to jail. But instead of looking at what's under that and saying, what is your strength? What are you good at? What you're using your best skills to survive. So how can we use those best skills in a legit job? Yeah. And he's helped so many people get regular jobs after they're convicted felons, been in jail. And the whole time I was listening to that, I kept thinking that same thing I think all the time is what happened to vocational school and public high school? What happened to a free education that had a path to a job, not just a free education? Everybody has a right to a free education, but there was a time in this country where vocational school was offered at every high school so that you had a path. Now, you may still say, fuck it, I don't want to do it and sell drugs, but at least there was some option. And there's, especially in the communities where, I mean, come on, there are communities where virtually everyone in the school is similar to Ms. Pat, where the whole school is socioeconomically devastated and drug challenged and single parent household and has no money and they're all on government assistance. Those schools need some serious overhauling because the kids have no hope. I think they leave there with no way of seeing any other path. I thought the whole time I was reading this book too, I kept thinking about the Hillbilly Elegy book that I've brought up several times, where that guy went to Harvard and all these people were doing things that he didn't even know to ask about. Like they were getting summer jobs with lawyers or judges, and he didn't even know that job existed. So he didn't even know to start looking for those summer intern jobs. Someone had to say, hey, listen, this is how this works. And if we don't do that for people who don't know how to do that, what do you expect? How do you expect people to make a different choice? That I kept thinking that. I'm going to ask her if she's ever read that book or how she feels about that, because I think that really is true. She didn't, I mean, her granddaddy run an illegal moonshine bar. I mean, her mother's an alcoholic.
Right. There's a generational piece to this.
Yes. Yeah. There's no one to say, just so you know, this is not the only choice for you.
Well, absolutely. If you think about it, most people, like a huge amount of kids go into the family business, whatever that is. If their parents are lawyers, then they like, oh, okay, I'll be a lawyer or a judge or something that's like related, or, you know, in healthcare or whatever, doctor, nurse, etc. Because you know about that job. I feel that all the time when we talk about like getting a second career going. All the time I'm meeting people who have a job that I did not even know existed.
Oh yeah.
And I'm
Nowadays.
from an upper middle class like neighborhood. But you know, honestly, most of us know about teacher, police officer, doctor,
fireman,
lawyer, fireman, like the basic ones that you learn in preschool. Like, and it doesn't extend much beyond that. Maybe like graphic artist.
Yeah, right.
Or whatever. Like, but we don't really know of a ton of jobs. And I'm constantly meeting people and going, wow, how'd you even know that job existed? Like, how do you find out
How'd
about
you get there?
Jobs like that? Wow.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's even more so because I'm so much older than a millennial that, you know, it's like there are all these jobs now for millennials, like social media manager.
Right?
Yes, exactly. Podcast producer.
Millennials are probably going, you didn't know about that?
I know,
Yeah.
right? They're like, oh.
No, didn't know about that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I don't know. Sort of to piggyback on what you were saying about the educational system, like one of the things that killed me was the teacher who was like, "Oh, you're dirty. Get out.
Oh my God.
You're dirty.
Oh
Like
my
you
God.
don't dress as nice as these other girls. Like you're therefore less worthy." Like this is supposed to be a place where you can get the education, where you can get the support, and it just failed.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, another system that failed, and
did.
that just kills me. Like, how do we fix that?
Well, that
Because
one teacher that
there was one
showed up
but,
with toiletries
Miss Troop,
and clean clothes and braided her hair. I was thinking about her because I thought to myself, that's one of the ways that you can fix that. is that you have adults that are wired like that woman who sees any of the children in the class and goes, okay, here's what this kid needs. I don't know if that's a counselor.
In every child.
Yeah,
like,
right.
I think that's the problem.
Well, you're not going to find that in those neighborhoods, unfortunately, in a lot of neighborhoods. I mean, there were teachers. I had one teacher that was the most revered teacher at elementary school told me he didn't know what to do about Isla. I don't know what to tell you about her. I don't know how she's going to make it. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? She's a white girl. What do you mean how's she going to make it? She's going to be fine. I just got to get her out of school. Like, we just got to get her through school. And don't make her feel like a failure because she's not a straight A student. That's bullshit. And that happened in our neighborhood.
Yeah, right.
And that happened with multiple teachers at our school with my kid who has a hard time reading. So you could imagine if she also smelled bad.
Yeah.
And she also had nappy hair.
Or was black.
And was black and had terrible clothes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, forget it. They're just completely, it's like I felt like she was garbage.
Yeah. She was treated that way. Absolutely.
She was garbage. And then this one woman said, actually, you are not garbage.
Right.
You are worth me coming to school 30 minutes early.
Yeah.
You are worth me bringing clean clothes. You are worth it. You are worth it. And that teacher, I believe, planted a seed in her that she was worth it. Because if you think about Pat, she has 4 siblings. She's the only one that got out of this, really. That we know of, according to the book. She's the only one that got out of this cycle of crime and super dysfunction. And I just wonder if her grandfather planted a seed and then this teacher planted the same seed, like same kind of seed. And then another...
That one guy that was drug dealing with her.
Yeah. The guy that was like a brother.
Yes.
I feel like I thought the same thing, actually, that she had very specific, only one, but it was specific people that really wanted her to grow and told her she was worth more.
Yes.
And they like just popped up a little bit throughout her life, but they were there. And I feel like it was that constant reminder, that constant message, like, you are better than this. You can do more than this.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the
if she didn't
sad
have
part
that,
about that, the very upsetting part, I mean, the hopeful part about that was that those people existed. But from, like, I just imagining her, because this was in elementary school that happened, and the absolute uncaring of her main teacher, the complete lack of caring of the principal when she's eating another kid's lunch because she was starving.
She was
because
sneaking.
she wasn't getting food at home.
Yeah.
And because instead of wondering why is a child so hungry that she's
has to
eating
steal
another
someone else's.
child's lunch, like that he paddles her.
Yeah.
Like that she, I mean, absolutely. Oh, I can't even talk about it. Like,
It's really, really upsetting.
it's very upsetting. And the amount of teachers and people, like adults, who failed her is absolutely disgusting. And to know that goes on, because this is just one person. It's just Ms. Pat's story.
Yeah.
And the lack of empathy of people who are in these jobs that are, when you think of teacher in like elementary school, anybody who works in an elementary school, they should like kids.
Yeah.
They should be caring at the very basic level. And to know that they weren't, and that was probably not just affecting Ms. Pat, but all these other kids.
That's the piece, right? So Ms. Pat has this one teacher who comes in, but she's a specialized teacher who helps with reading. So she helps 4 kids or whatever. What about the other 20 kids in the class that are still being treated like dirt, that don't get that one piece that says you are valuable?
Right.
Like, so me, I didn't do shit, obviously. Like, this one person gets saved, but what about those other 20 kids that don't?
It's tragic.
That continue the cycle. Like, that's so terrible.
Like her 4 siblings who didn't have that
right,
teacher.
who didn't have the teacher or anyone else, maybe.
They experienced maybe not the same, but definitely the same environment as Miss Pat. Their experiences, no one's are exactly the same, but it's the same environment. They're growing up in the same alcoholic, abusive, changing houses every 6 months, getting evicted, stealing electricity, grifting churches for food. It's all the same.
Stealing from the
thing.
Goodwill donation bin, which again is one of those things that if you hear it on paper, you go, oh, who steals from the Goodwill donation bin? how dare you? Those are donations. And then you go, oh my God, steal away. Like
Right. Like
That's
place
what they're
do you
there
have
for.
to be in
Oh
to
my
actually
God.
steal? So
Yeah.
then take it. Yeah.
oh my God.
Right. Isn't that crazy?
Like to not even be able to afford to pay Goodwill prices for
Right.
for clothes is horrible.
Yeah.
It was horrible. But yeah, I don't know. It made me think about how much I don't know,
Yeah.
how much I don't understand, right? I think I'm a pretty enlightened person, but I really don't understand a lot. I don't understand anything she lived through. I mean, at all. I had a crazy mother. My mother was not like this.
Yeah.
You know,
Crazy mother who fed you and got you to school on
who
time.
loved
Right.
me,
And yeah.
was an alcoholic,
Yeah.
just had her own troubles, but nothing. I was never food insecure ever.
Oh my God. And I mean, the teacher for fucking like judging her for rolling into school late. Like,
Yeah.
oh, what time is it, Pat? And, oh my God. Like she was rolling into school late because she had a mother who fucking didn't get her up for school.
Her brother
She
did.
was passed out. Yeah.
Her brother got her
Can
up
you
for school
imagine?
every
And
day.
then she was like a little kid. Wasn't she like 6 or 7 or 8 or,
yeah,
you
I
know,
think so.
she was elementary school age. Can you imagine any of our children getting their asses up in time to go to school
Today,
and then
even,
going
no.
to school? If I didn't wake them up and it was a school day, they'd be like, woohoo, day off school.
Yeah,
You
I'm
know,
just not going.
But she
Right.
even had the like get up and go
To want to
get
be
up
there.
and go to school.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, it's so disturbing.
Yes, it was very disturbing. Let me see what else I wrote
The
down.
amount of the lack of compassion from people you expect it from. That was really hard. Yeah.
That was hard. And, you know, I wonder, I think that this community for white people is very out of sight, out of mind.
Absolutely.
I don't have to see this. I don't have to walk down Ms Pat Street and see people stealing electricity, drunk, curlers in their hair, beating their son. I don't see it. Why would I see it? I live in Whitey McWhiteville over here, which I didn't even intend to do.
Yeah.
But I wonder if we saw it, I think we would understand better when people are yelling and screaming about the police, you know, terrorizing their community on some level. And I think we would maybe understand. I think that this sounds terrible. I don't mean this the way it's going to come out. I don't mean that white people would change it, but I do think it would start changing if white people saw it in a way that they could really viscerally feel what's going on. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. But for some reason, it's not changing. And these people are living in this, and even the people that are getting out of this, and it's still not changing. So what is missing? What is not being seen or understood that we haven't stood up as a collective and said, this needs to change? Like, we need to fuck the wall going around Mexico. This is a real problem, and we are like, this is almost like letting people starve in Africa. We have so much resource in this country. I felt very ashamed that I didn't know more, and that I haven't tried to do more for something I really don't know anything about. You know what I mean? And it is very out of sight, out of mind. I don't deal with this.
It's like the ignorance of just, you know, we drive our routes, getting our kids to school, and we don't drive through neighborhoods that look like this.
No.
You know, and I'm not talking about black neighborhoods, but that look like this in terms of poverty. We don't have extreme well, we do have poverty around us. We have homeless people. Mm-hmm. But that is the poverty we have. We don't have an entire community that we're driving through to get our kids to school going, oh my God.
This needs to change.
Yeah. And ignorance is bliss.
So how do we fix that? Do we fix it? Is it fixable? Is it something that can be handled? What has to happen for that to become important? Because really, if you think about everything we've talked about with these early childhood educators, then what my brain goes, well, here's a solution. You have to have a teaching certificate and a psychology certificate, and you get paid double what a regular teacher gets paid. And you go into the places that are in crisis, because her community sounded like it was in crisis. It was like almost a war zone, even though at that point there were no gangs shooting and killing each other. The basic home life that was happening was disastrous. And maybe it wasn't her whole community. I don't know. We're only seeing her community through her life. Maybe that's an assumption I'm making. I don't know. But I just think then if the family unit, so to speak, is failing, how do we implement a family unit in that community so that this generation understands they have other options, or there's a different way to resolve conflict, or you can educate yourself and you don't have to be a doctor. You can be a plumber, and that's great. How do we change? How do we make that shift?
You know, I read a book, and I cannot for the life of me remember it right now, but it was all about changing the education system. And I forget what country it was, but basically you as a culture, like the US as a culture, has to put a value on teachers. Oh my God, they're making faces. Sorry. And I forget which country it was, but basically, teachers have to be revered. You know, like there's so much about how teachers aren't getting paid enough or whatever, but that was like the dream job. And not everyone could do it.
In this country.
In this particular country. And you had to, and several countries actually that are very successful and whatnot. But like you had to apply to university. Not everyone got to be a teacher. It couldn't be a second
is this
career.
Like Finland or something? I feel like I read about this.
Something like this. I don't want to say the wrong country, but it is, yes.
European.
European. There was, I don't know, some Asian, I don't want to say Korean, but I'm doing such a bad job at complaining this. However,
it was somewhere.
It was somewhere.
Bottom line, it was somewhere
really important.
in the world.
And it was very much like, this is how they turned their culture around, quite literally. They put all of this value and they put all of this effort into making teachers be these people that really taught the next generation, that created the country to be significantly better, healthier, safer, smarter, whatever.
Right.
All of that kind of stuff. So I feel like that is sort of what needs to happen.
Right.
You know, because I don't know. I feel like that's one way to make this change happen.
Right. I think there's a multi-dimensional change.
Yeah, of course.
So many things. It's like it's a chicken and the egg sort of situation with a lot of things. One of the things, I just read an article about teaching meditation. I don't want this to be triggering for you, Leanne. I know you like meditation is like bad for you, but your connotations. But anyway, they were teaching meditation instead of detention. So the kids, instead of getting punished, were forced to meditate.
Oh, yeah.
And that it really turned the culture around.
And it reduced the amount of detentions.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I read this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Because it was
because they didn't want to meditate.
Either they were trying to get out of meditation or they were learning some mindfulness.
I'm joking.
But it may have been. I mean, either way.
No, I'm sure it was not.
But they were learning mindfulness and like to take a minute and to breathe and to think.
Instead of
just being reactive.
Instead of punitive.
Yes.
They gave them a skill.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly. And I feel like, I mean, that's not going to solve all the problems in Ms. Pat's neighborhood, but things like that even at a higher level, like when she went to jail for dealing drugs.
Yeah.
That it's like, what did that teacher in the end? Like, what was it helpful to send this single mom who had been through the shit that she'd been through with the lack of supports that she'd been through? Like, why is it even helpful to send her to jail? She needed supports. She needed a system who didn't screw her over by, once she learned the skills, once they finally got her in a program, like, oh, you're going to learn a skill. And then she learned a skill. And then, you know, what we were talking about. And then, oh, you're a felon. You can't get this job,
you're
whatever.
Use the skill we just taught you.
Yeah. The entire system needs an overhaul of understanding. It's basically a baseline of empathy instead of being punitive. You know, at a elementary school level with the meditation instead of detention, but even older to go like, okay, well, why was she dealing drugs? To look at that, to like have a judicial system that cares about that, that instead of just saying, oh, well, she's dealing crack, fuck her, to jail you go.
Right.
To look at it and go, wow, but look at how well she was doing for herself. Look at how well she took care of these kids.
Right.
And, to just have some empathy.
Yeah, I think empathy is definitely missing. I think it's hard for a lot of people. I think it's hard for a lot of people to let go of the rules of society.
Yeah.
Rules of society are there because we need them. They're necessary. If not, it would be absolute mayhem. So I get that. Someone is breaking the law by selling crack. They should be taken off the street because they are contributing to the delinquency of this whole group of people they're selling crack to. That's not cool, right? So I think probably part of the problem in not being able to make any kind of reform for people who deal in drugs in any capacity is that piece. Is that, well, you know what? You broke the law, you go to jail. That's just clear. We can't make an exception for you because you had a bad life. This person maybe just thought it was cool to sell crack. And so how do we make a judgment? And how do you differentiate? And is it necessary to differentiate? But we do have to have some rules. I mean, do we just go, murderers go to jail? And that, I actually agree with you. I'm just trying to be a devil's advocate.
I understand.
And think the other side.
I mean,
that's
this is not why this is why I'm not creating policy.
Everybody gets a blankie.
Yeah, I don't know what the answer is, but
I don't know.
I was
either.
thinking of that sort of similar thing in when she had taken care of her sister's kids for a solid decade.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
And then her sister came back who was unstable, but the rule is you go back with mom.
Yeah.
Even though these kids were provided for, were developing, were like golden.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For a solid decade.
Yeah.
But their mom shows up who is unstable, who has been on drugs or whatever. I don't remember all the circumstances, but they're like, yeah, it's mom. So you're going back. And then those 4 kids fell apart.
They fell totally apart.
Like,
yep. That is a
early
testament,
pregnancy, like that was devastating. And that was the instance where I was like, no. Like, this is where the social worker makes the judgment, says, no. This is a better home environment. I know your mom, but maybe not right now.
Right.
And we're not allowed to make that judgment.
Right,
but
right.
in that instance, I feel like that would have been
that's why the black
so
and
much
white
better.
rule of law is
Right.
just not
it's devastating.
helpful.
Well, then what is the role of a social worker?
But
just to soften the blow? Or what's the role of a social worker then? If the social worker has, like the social worker that kept showing up.
It's the law. The
I
law
know,
is
but
you
then
go back.
Yeah, I
with the
know,
parent.
but I know when that happened, I went, she
You
was
just
fucking
knew what
breaking
was
the
happening.
cycle. She was breaking
Yeah.
the cycle. The cycle was being broken with all her sister's kids.
Yep.
And at great
then it
cost.
started
And
there.
at great cost to her. Like, she just about blew up her marriage over it because suddenly, we're taking in all these kids.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, it
she's
was
an
devastating.
she's an amazing woman.
She is an amazing woman. But you think, like you said, this is one person's story in this culture. How many other people? I mean, I can't imagine anybody had it much worse than she had. I can't imagine unless somebody was like physically beating the shit out of her constantly and everything else she was going through. It was pretty bad.
But they were. I mean, her mom beat her up.
Beat her up. I mean, like on the reg. I mean, like every day.
And then her, adult boyfriend was beating her up on the reg. The baby daddy.
The baby daddy.
Who should have been. I can't believe, why didn't the social worker intervene and charge him with?
Yeah, that's my question too.
I didn't understand what happened there.
Why didn't a social worker have him arrested?
Yeah.
Right. Or at least
Can
report
they?
it.
Can they do that? A social worker?
They can report it. They can't arrest him. But
Well, I mean, yeah, well, obviously.
I mean, you're
But that's the
mandated
problem
to
with statutory
you
rape,
are
though.
required by law.
But with
to-
statutory rape, like if it requires the victim to acknowledge it, like to say this person did this, like I doubt they're going to do a DNA test back then on the babies to find out that they really were his. I
Not
don't
back
know.
then, but I wonder if they do it now. I wonder
Yeah.
what would happen now,
Yeah.
today, if a girl at 13 is impregnated by, what was he, 21 or something?
Yeah, he was 20 when they started dating. She was 12 years old. He was 20. I mean, Jesus Christ.
It's disgusting. And then, yeah, that whole thing bothered me too. And the fact that this fucker was impregnating other girls her same age at the same time.
Same time.
He brought another girl to the birth.
Yep.
Oh, my God.
He should have been in jail. See, that guy,
Yes.
I think, I don't give a shit what's going on in your home life.
No,
You are ruining other people's
No,
lives. But you could,
exactly.
I guess, have that same argument for someone selling crack to someone who's probably ruining that person who's using is ruining their life. You know what I mean?
No, I know. I know.
So complicated.
It is.
It's mental health. I think it goes back to not like she's schizophrenic mental health, but like a lack of coping skills, a lack of that fixed mentality versus growth mentality has to be learned in
So
some ways.
That's a question that I have for Ms. Pat.
Thanks, Alexa.
A question that I have for her is therapy. Like, is there enough therapy in the world to get through what she got through? Did she have, I don't remember if it mentioned, did she
I
have
don't
any
remember.
therapy? Because this is like,
so.
she is just a strong person.
Well, she did talk to that social worker every time that she'd say, "You are so funny. You should be a stand-up comedian."
Yeah.
So she's went to her multiple times.
But that was much later.
yeah, it was. Yes, it
In
was much
life.
later.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
it
I
wasn't
can't
like
imagine
therapy, like
therapy-
processing things.
No,
she was,
did have to go to therapy at one point when I think she did when she was a child, and she didn't like it. Maybe I'm making that up. I don't know.
I can't remember,
that part.
but I
feel
just
like
thought,
therapy
oh
was
my
not
God.
a big, as an adult, I would think she would, but I don't know.
yeah, it just to think about that, like how small all the problems in everybody else that I know in the world, that all of the problems of their lives are compared to just one of the things that she dealt with. I mean, literally
yeah.
just one,
Just one
like being shot at, like
being shot,
being shot,
not
Yeah.
just shot
Yeah,
at.
shot at, shot,
Being shot.
being
Twice.
shot.
Yeah.
Ugh.
There's
Selling
too
crack.
many to list.
Yeah.
But any one of those things could put you in therapy for a lifetime.
Right.
And that she just has the mental and emotional fortitude to just deal with it and get shit done.
Yeah. Just keep moving forward. And that she never became a crackhead herself.
Yeah.
That she never
Yeah.
went into escapism. She never did. I mean,
Yeah.
she thought she was in love with that boy because when you're 13
Of course.
and someone pays that much attention to you and you're love
After being
starved,
neglected for so long.
and neglected and abused by Mr. Jack.
yeah.
Then you
and
go
abused by her mom and
Yes.
no, I
And no
love
dad
you.
in the
Right.
picture.
No,
and
I mean, no
granddaddy's
hugs.
taken.
Once granddad was gone, there was no one.
There was no positive male role model at all.
Or female role model.
Or female. Well, that
Tell-
was never
no,
there.
yeah.
But she at least had her granddaddy, and then that's
Yeah.
removed.
Right. So when someone older starts paying attention,
Of course, it makes perfect sense. She was the perfect candidate for that
Yeah.
gross guy.
Predator.
And even Mr. Jack, who took advantage of her and her sister. That they're disgusting human beings. But what is she supposed to do? You know, you get love where you can get it. I think when you're in that kind of damaged place.
Yeah.
And she did just keep going. Talk about resilience.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's what I was thinking after our last book club
Right.
talk, that I was like, yeah, just talk to Ms. Pat about resilience.
Right.
Like, she has all the answers because
Yeah, I'm curious. I've always been really curious to know what did make the difference for her as opposed to her four siblings. Is it those little people sprinkled throughout? We don't know her four siblings' stories. Maybe they had people sprinkled throughout their life. We don't know. But I've always wondered what causes one person to persevere where other people can't in a same or similar scenario like her four siblings.
Yeah.
They're not the same, but it's pretty similar, you know? And why they couldn't do it. What is that element in a human being that makes them go, I'm putting one foot in front of the other and I'm figuring this shit out somehow? And then how sweet that her husband showed up and saw who she was too.
yeah.
And he's really the one that went, you're better than this and you
Yeah.
have to get out of this hustle.
yeah.
I love that guy.
I love that guy too.
I love him so much. I have no idea what he looks like. I've just, when he showed up and I was like, he's going to really take a chance on her. Bless his heart.
Yeah.
What a great person to see past the noise she was putting out.
Yeah.
Of selling crack and, it was a hard book to read, wasn't it?
Easy but hard.
Yes.
I mean, absolute
Easy but emotional.
page turner,
Yeah.
but so emotional.
Yeah.
So glad I read it.
Me too.
Oh yeah.
I loved
I'm
it.
so glad you found it.
I loved it.
Yeah.
Me too. Well, she asked me to read it. The copy I have is a proof. So I don't even know. It may be, some of it may be different in your copies. She gave this to me a long time ago, and I started it, and it was too hard. And I went, I can't read this right now. I can't do it. So I put it down. Her granddaddy hadn't even left yet. That's how early I put it down.
Wow.
Because I was like, I can't read this right now. So I put it down. And then when her manager called and said, Ms. Pat wants to be on your podcast, and I was going to Bali, I was like, that's it. I'm just going to read this book. And I could not put it down. I read it like almost in one sitting practically.
Yeah.
It took me 2 days, but I read it for just as much as I could, and I couldn't wait to get back to it. I couldn't wait to see how she got here, because we all know it has a happy ending, which it makes it easier to read, I think.
Well, you know what? I got to be
Absolutely.
honest with you. I'd never heard of her. I didn't know who she was before you recommended this book. I had no idea.
Yeah. I'm sure.
So, yeah, I don't want to say I didn't know it had a happy ending. I mean, I kind of consciously knew that, but I didn't know anything about her until this.
Yeah. She's pretty happy soul. She's a really happy person. Every time I see her, she just has a beautiful light about her. And, you think, if she can do that, then just about anybody on this planet can have a good light.
Yeah.
If you choose to. If you choose to try and work through your shit, you can do that too. Because, I mean, after you read this book, people listening, and you don't feel that way, I'll be shocked. I mean, I don't know what is worse. Maybe the Holocaust survivors, they may have had it worse. That's the only thing I can think of.
No, exactly.
Right.
I mean, it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
I don't know, but maybe that's it. She had that light all along, and that's what got her through,
Maybe. Maybe.
And now it just shines brighter because there's not all that other shit going on.
All the garbage.
Yeah, I finished this book and was just like, I hope she gets her own sitcom or something so that I can watch her on a regular basis, because I just wanted to be around her more.
Yeah.
It was just like, I can't believe, what will she get out of next? Like,
Right.
what will she live through next?
Right.
And I didn't want her to live through anything bad next, but I just wanted to see how she dealt with everything.
Right. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see her path. I mean, she's already on a great path. She's a stand-up. She's very successful, and she seems really happy, and that's great. So, only good things from here, right?
Yeah.
I'd hope so.
She deserves it.
She sure does, man.
Yeah, man.
Anything else we need to say about this book?
So can I tell you the one question I want to ask her, which is so random? Okay, so obviously I read this book in one sitting, and at the very end, when there was just a few pages, like Stephen was like, all right, come on, let's go. We're done being at the pool. So I read them really quickly because I was like, I've got 10 pages. I'm reading the rest of this book. And the end of it was about the thank yous and all of that kind of stuff. And her thank you says, thank you to my husband, Garrett. And I was like, wait, what?
Who's
Who
Garrett?
the fuck is Garrett?
I think
What?
she-
And then I left the pool and I could not let it go. It was in my head. And I was like, what? Did I miss something? Did I not read this well?
She
Literally
gave-
all night. I couldn't let it go. The next
she
morning
gave
I
her
reread
kids,
it. And I'm
by him,
fascinated
different
by
names
that
in the-
choice because she's so open and so raw and real about everything. And she changes their names almost like she's protecting them, but then she genuinely thanks who they are in their real name.
Yeah.
So there's no protection.
Yeah, I was
Right.
curious
I
about
was
that
so
too.
fascinated by the choice that she made for that. I was like, do you not like the name Garrett? What's happening here? I
Right.
don't get it. Why is he Michael?
In the movie, his
right,
name will be
in the-
Michael.
Right. I don't get what was that all
Wait,
about?
I thought she called him Garrett in the book.
His name is Michael.
He's
in the
Michael
book.
in the book.
And they named
Yeah, and
Michael
then they're-
Jr.
Yeah, Michael Jr. But in the at the end, it's Garrett and Garrett, Jr.
and the other kid. Yeah.
That's Garrett.
Isn't he cute? Look at his sweet face. I love that guy.
Yeah, look at that smile, right?
I love him. He's so cute. And look at this one. Her son in the corner. Look, he's so cute. They're adorable.
Oh,
That's funny.
That's her granddaughter.
Oh,
William's her husband, Garrett. If there's a kid, it just melts my heart. She says, because I was that kid.
yeah.
Oh my God.
And that's the truth. Like the amount of kids she's taken in throughout the course of her life.
Yeah.
yeah.
She has a gigantic heart.
She does. And man, she's a powerhouse.
Yeah.
And she don't mind talking dirty. And I like that. I like that. Some of the questions I want to ask her, I'm kind of nervous to ask her because it's not really about the book. I want to know where Sweetie is now, her sister.
Yeah.
I want to know where her brothers are and how they're doing. I want to know how the 4 kids that she took care of for 10 years are, where they are and what they're doing.
Yeah.
But
She talked about that a little bit.
she did a little, but I want
there's more.
But I want to know I want to know now.
Yeah.
Like today, where they are. But I also want to know how, and I don't know if she'll answer this even, how she feels about white people now, based on how her mother told her
Yeah.
to feel about white people. How does she feel about white people now? Is that ingrained? Does she still feel? Did she ever feel that way? The way her mother told her to feel? That
Well, I
don't
think
look
so
them in
because
the
remember
eye.
the cake incident?
I don't remember.
Remember when she moved to Indiana, right?
Oh, yeah.
And the white woman brought over a cake and said, "Welcome to the neighborhood." And she called her friend, like, "Do I eat this? Is it poison?"
I forgot about
Remember?
that. Yes.
So it has to be somewhat ingrained
Yeah,
for her
I
to
guess
question,
so.
like, a white woman being nice to me. Like, what the hell is happening?
I feel like everything that I was taught or learned, like as a child through like high school, when I think back, if that comes up, if it's like, you know, like say it's about something innocuous, like a dinosaur, like there used to be, was it pterodactyls when we were kids and now they've realized they're pteranodons or is that the same thing? I don't know. Like dinosaurs have changed, like something very basic. There
We
used
lost
to be
a planet. How's that?
We lost a planet. Exactly.
Right.
That I have to that I still think back to the original information. I'm go to tell my kids, oh, that's a brontosaurus or whatever. And then I'm like, oh, that's actually I have to actually, yeah. And I just wonder about things like deep things that our parents teach us things, whether they say it out loud, don't
Absolutely,
trust,
yeah.
don't, white people are better. Oh God, makes me feel sick. But if it's something like that, or even if it's, how they feel about money, like, oh no, we don't tip that much or whatever the thing is, that as an adult, you still go back to that knowledge, or at least I still do first. And then I have to remind myself, no, I'm a better tipper. Or
Yeah.
no,
I know
it's
what
a
you
different
mean,
type
yeah.
of dinosaur. So I would think if it was me, I would still think that first thing that my parents told me and then have to remind myself, no, that's not my thought.
Right.
Yeah.
That's an ingrained thought that
It's
someone
that
else's
unconscious
thought.
bias. And you're like, yeah, but
What do I think?
I have to make it conscious because
Yeah.
that's not actually how I think or feel.
I mean, I'm 47 years old, and literally a couple months ago, I don't remember what I was thinking about, but my first thought, I realized, I stopped myself and said, no, that's what my parents think. What do I think about that?
Absolutely.
At 47 years old, I was still thinking, what do I think about this thing?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. I have thoughts sometimes that are very racist, to be quite honest. And I go, I heard that growing up. I actually don't believe that at all. Like, not that statement doesn't even make sense, actually. It's like ignorant and racist. And I don't believe that.
And it still is in your head all of a
And
sudden.
it still pops in my head, and I go, shit, I think I'm really not a racist person, but it's in there from the culture I grew up in. I grew up in rural Georgia in the South and in Atlanta in the South. And my mother sent me to private school because the school district we lived in was predominantly black. And she went, nope, you're not going to a black school. And, part of you can say, well, that might have been a good choice. If I was like one of the very few white kids at an all black school, that might have been very hard. But at the same time, it was her connotation. It was her tone of voice when she talked about it, where it didn't mean like, yeah, I don't want my daughter to be a duck out of water. That's not what she was saying. She was saying, you're not going to that school. No. And I don't think I have that in me, but also I'm also not aware of the unconscious stuff that happens all the time for everybody, because you, like you said, you're so inundated as a kid with whatever the culture is, with whatever it is. I mean, I think about things now where even just like practical things that involve building something, where my brain knows how to build stuff because I grew up building stuff. So then that stuff, I don't even really think, oh yeah, I need to measure that. I just measure it and then realize, oh, I just knew how to do that. But I wonder how many white people, not just me, have these kind of almost like automatic thoughts
reflex
that come from the way you grew up. Because, as much as a white person says, I'm not racist, I think you can't really say that as a white person entirely,
Well, because we benefit from a system of racism.
Systemic racism,
like
yes.
the white privilege that we benefit from. Even if you didn't ask for it and don't, say you don't want it, we are benefiting from white privilege. So
Absolutely.
We are beneficiaries of a racist system.
Right, yes. And we should take a little more responsibility for that than I think we do as a culture. And to understand, like that time that Georgia grifted Universal Studios and said she had a bum knee and she needed a front of the line pass for a bum knee. And we got so angry at her. Not only is that stealing, it's like so unethical on so many levels. But Bert said to her, here's another layer. You are a blonde white girl. You can get away with stuff that a black girl your same age, saying your same words, asking for the same privilege would never get. And there is a responsibility that you have to not ever take advantage of that white privilege if you can help it. Like there's sometimes in the systemic way we work where you can't help it. Like it's just the way life works sometimes. But in that choice that she made, that was another layer of why that was wrong. There were other layers also, but I'm glad that Bert put that layer on there so that she has, because I didn't think of it. It didn't occur to me, oh, you're a white girl, you get more. I didn't think about that, but he did. And he went, you are responsible in a different way than ethnic people are responsible. And you have to behave that way. You can't just go, yeah, I get it, and not have any awareness that these other people don't because of the color of their skin. And I think we don't do that enough in life. We may not be able to change the system, but we could definitely be aware of that.
Yeah.
Where we get privilege that other people don't.
And to have the conversation.
Yeah. And to have the conversation.
That's super important. Like, because how do you teach the next generation? If you're not having the conversation with them,
right,
they're going to be just as ignorant.
That's true.
Yeah.
I was ignorant.
Yeah. I would never have thought of that in 100 years.
Never.
Which is terrible, but I wouldn't have.
No.
Yeah.
When Bert said that, I was like, this is why I married you. You are really smart. You're smart in a different way than I'm smart. We got in an argument the other day because he was asking me something that was going on for him emotionally. And I was trying to explain to him fixed mindset versus growth mindset. And he was holding on to something really stupid. And I was like, well, if you look at it in this growth mindset, you can let it go. And he goes, I fucking hate you. I hate you that you do this to me. And I went, no, you don't. You hate me because I'm as smart as you are. And he went, nope. And I said, yep, I'm as smart as you are. I may not be smart in the same areas, but I'm the same smart. Nope. Yes, I am. Nope. Yes, I am. It is 20 minutes of that. I was like, I am really smart, but I'm not smart like he is. I never would have thought to have brought that up. So maybe that's something we need to take responsibility for as a white culture, is to have our kids realize and be grateful and be humbled by that privilege instead of thinking of it as a right, an unconscious right.
And not want to perpetuate it, and be conscious enough to not want to perpetuate that. Because even though you get good things, they are ill-gotten gains.
In some ways, and I also at the same time feel like it shouldn't make us feel bad to be white. I shouldn't feel bad to be white because I am of the quote privileged class.
Just like we shouldn't feel bad if we were gay because that's just you're born like we're born with our skin, we're born with all of that. Yeah.
No control over that. I did not make the choice to be a white girl with freckles. I would have chosen no freckles. But I didn't get that choice. So yeah, I don't want my kids to ever feel bad about being white, but I don't think they do. But just to be aware that it means more than maybe we make them aware of.
Right.
I don't know. How do we wrap this up, ladies?
It's a good book. Read it.
It's a great book.
Really good book.
It is a really good book.
It's an eye-opening book.
Yeah. Yes.
It definitely made me think about race in a different way. This is probably not very flattering, but sometimes, when someone yells at you about something, you listen less. And sometimes lately, I feel about a lot of liberal issues and some race issues, I feel I'm yelled at a lot. Not personally, but like, this is the position, and this is what you should believe, and this is what's happening. And I don't process that well. Just experiencing her story made me listen in a way I felt like I haven't been listening, maybe in a long, long time. Because I feel like things are so shoved in your face and you either agree with me or you're a racist, or you agree with me or you are not liberal, or you agree with me or you are not kind. And I just don't believe that's true. I believe there's variations in belief for every issue, and that I don't have to be, if we were all completely in alignment with each other, I mean, it's an impossibility.
It's an impossibility.
Right.
It's an impossibility, but I think that that's what it's expected from all aspects of the things that we argue about as a culture now, not just race, but sexuality and abortion and everything. It's just you're either with me or against me. And I get tired of that because I feel like I'm neither one or the other. I have opinions both ways. And this book it was so not that. It was so like, look at my experience of life and me going, oh my God, this is just awful. And how do we look at things differently now? So I don't know. Anyway.
But hey, look, I would like to just say we are 2 for 2. We have just read 2 books in a row in this book club that we all
That are
enjoyed.
great. Yeah.
That's true.
That is a miracle.
That I would recommend. I think these are probably our best reads so far.
I think
where
so.
we all liked them as
Yes.
much as we did.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
Yep. Yeah. It takes
2 thumbs
minutes.
up.
2 thumbs up. So the next book we're reading is called Mindset.
Oh God.
Carol Dweck, Dweck. Oh God, are you not enjoying it?
I haven't started it. I'm just
Well, then
dreading
what are
it.
you oh-godding? You haven't
Because
started
I
it.
picked it up and it's just dense and I don't know.
I want to, yeah.
I'll try to go into it with a better attitude, Leanne.
It's not, at least it's not like a 400-page book.
Yeah.
It's not super long. And I sat down today and read for about 40 minutes. And I was like, you know what? I think I need to just plow through it. And I am learning in this book. But it's hard to go from Ms Pat
Yeah.
Yeah.
and the book before that, where you're kind of devouring it,
Yes.
to something that moves a little more academically.
Yeah.
It is hard to shift those gears. But I think there's a lot to be learned in this book. A lot to discuss. Because I'm making a lot of notes in the margins in this book where I go, this is fascinating. And then I'll read like 6 more pages and then go, oh yeah, this is fascinating too. So,
Okay.
but it's called Mindset. It's about fixed versus growth mentality. And that's our next book club book. So join us if you care to. Thanks for listening every week. I can't wait for Ms Pat to come back to LA so I can have her on and discuss whatever she wants to
That
discuss.
is so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's a fascinating woman.
She is a fascinating woman. She's a unique, powerful, fascinating woman. So now everybody can listen to her on Joe Rogan too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
And see
will.
what that's about. I hear it's amazing. So I can't wait to listen to it.
Me too.
All right. Thank you, ladies. Thank you
Thank
for
you
always
for
reading.
suggesting
it.
Yeah.